Well, I think what became evident during our 250 presentations was not only did people want two high schools, but there was something driving that whole thing. In the early 70s and the 80s, what parents were telling us, parents who had students that had gone through the system, is that our school was not a very caring school, that youngsters didn't feel that anyone reached out to them, embraced them, and supported them. Now, I don't think that was actually true, but that's how people felt. That was a perception. So they felt that two high schools would help that. But as we started looking at two high schools, you were going to still have probably two of the largest high schools in the state at 2,000 plus students. So we decided, you know, if you're going to really try to make this more of a personalized environment for students, that it was critical to reshape the educational environment and the learning environment. And thanks in large part to Peggy Reynolds again, we had gone to a conference in Washington, and at that time they were talking about these smaller learning community grants. So Peggy, with a few other people, she was a primary writer, had written the grant, which eventually was approved, which provided in excess of $1 million to the community to design smaller learning communities, which meant that you'd take the school of 2,000 and break it into smaller schools of 500. And that's what the research was saying. If you had schools of 500, then you could be successful at the high school level. And we were experiencing a very large dropout rate. Many of us who were involved in the initial stages of this, I can recall 5:30 in the morning getting on buses with school board members, teachers, and administrators and driving to Maine and getting up there around 8:30 and visiting high schools. But no matter where we went that had these new facilities, their dropout rate was low because they had concentrated on these smaller learning communities and reaching these students. So that was the intent when we designed the two schools, to break them into academies that we now have today. And I think one of the results of that is we had a dropout rate back then of 16.5%. It's down to 4.5%. So I think we're beginning to see the fruits of our labor. But the community was saying that, you know, if we're going to spend $143 million for two new high schools, something has to change. It's not the building that delivers the quality program. Something has to change internal to the building. And a lot has changed from the instructional practices. You know, we've implemented block scheduling. The academies are here. And that $1 million, I think, was a savior because teachers had to be retooled, retrained. And the majority of that $1 million trained teachers over a 3-year period to get ready for the opening of these two brand new high schools. So not only did you see two beautiful facilities, but I think you're seeing now a state-of-the-art education that's being provided to the people in the buildings.